Hello and welcome to this video. I have seen, I think Sarah Caroli, if I'm remembering her name correctly, do this video idea, and I kind of wrote it down as something that I wanted to do eventually and finally got around to doing it, but I lost some of the video footage from this video because it did take me several months to film it. So I am refilming the intro right now, a couple months later after starting it, because I lost the intro, which thankfully is an easy part of this video to recreate. But basically the point of this video is to read a book starting with every letter that's in my name. So my name is Melody, so that's going to be, what is that, 6 books? So that is why it took me a little while, and at the same time it was kind of the holiday season while I was filming some of this, so it went over Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's always just such a busy time that I feel like I just didn't have as much time to read as normal. And also, I am pregnant and I was dealing with some of the pregnancy nausea and stuff like that, and so I didn't have as much energy and I wasn't reading as quickly as normal, so it took me a while, but we did eventually finish this video. Anyway, I thought it was kind of fun to do. I did have to buy a couple books or borrow from the library in order to do this goal because to be honest, I've been trying to keep my TBR pretty minimal and I love that, but it does make it a little bit more difficult when it comes to challenges like this because I just don't have a lot on there. Thankfully, Libby exists for audiobooks and the library exists and bookstores exist, so there's always a way to get your hand on books. But it was fun doing this video because it allowed me to read books that I probably wouldn't have picked up otherwise, but you'll find that out for yourself as you continue watching this video. I hope you enjoy.
Okay, I am doing some reading before work as normal, and I think I'm about halfway through now, and I still don't really know what to think of this book, to be honest. For those who haven't read it, just like a really quick synopsis is basically this girl has decided for the next year of her life, she just wants to sleep and relax. And in order to do so, she is going to a therapist or a psychologist and getting them to prescribe her medications to help her sleep. So she's claiming that she's unable to sleep, she's exhausted, and she just needs help. And we see repeatedly she's going to these appointments saying, oh, this medication didn't work, I am having horrible dreams, I still don't feel well, I'm still not sleeping, and getting prescribed a variety of different medications that she is trying out. Now we're starting to see that she is like sleepwalking and sleep shopping, sleep phoning, and doing all of this stuff in her sleep, and she wakes up, just doesn't remember any of it. But then, she can see she ordered a bunch of Chinese food because it's left on the counter and stuff like that. So it's interesting, and I feel like they're kind of trying to show her background here and there to show like how she ended up at this point. So at first they're talking about this ex-boyfriend that she had that didn't treat her very well and that was older than her, and now we're kind of starting to see some of her family background and how her mom wasn't a great mom. I'll just leave it at that and not give too many specifics, but was kind of like emotionally distant and focused on really vain things instead of actually taking care of her child. I just don't know how I feel about it. It does read very, very quickly, so that's nice. Like right now, I'm feeling like it's maybe gonna be like a 3-star. Like it's a good book, but it's not amazing. And I feel like we're not, at least not yet. There's no like climax to the story. The book feels very kind of like even toned. And you do get some stories of her past that kind of spice things up. Stories of things that have happened in her childhood or things that she did when she was working at an art gallery. And that kind of like brings some life and some interest to the story, because if the entire story was just about her laying in a bed and taking drugs, it would be a really boring book. So I don't know. It's an interesting one, that's for sure, but I still don't fully know how I feel about it. Okay, I am about to go to bed, but I wanted to check in about my year of rest and relaxation. I only have a few pages left. Like, to be honest, I should have probably just finished it this morning because like, I think I have less than 10 pages left, but that's okay. I needed to get to work at some point. I still don't really know how I feel about this book, to be honest, which is why I haven't really been checking in about it. It's just such a strange book. It feels very flat to me, which I feel like was probably done on purpose because the whole point of it is this girl who is basically drugging herself to be asleep and numb herself to the world. And so I understand that maybe the book feeling flat and repetitive is to kind of get us into her mind and what her mental state was like, and what her life was like at this time. And there are flashbacks to things that have happened previously in her life that kind of led her to this point, and I think those parts are a little bit more interesting as we get to know the character. And now we're at a point where it seems like she's finishing off her year of drugging herself. I just, maybe the book isn't for me, or maybe I'm just not getting it. At this point, there's only a few pages left, so I doubt this is going to change. I'm going to probably give it a 2.5 or 3 stars. Like, it's not a bad book, but it's not doing anything for me either. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a weird one, and I don't know how else to explain that. I might look at some Goodreads reviews once I finish it and see if there's anyone who can explain the way that I feel about this book better than me, and then I will steal their words. Yeah, strange book. I can see how some people could really like it, and I can also see how other people would hate the book. So I'm just kind of somewhere in the middle, I guess. Okay, so I did finish my year of rest and relaxation. I thought it was good. The ending was interesting. I don't want to really say anything because it's like really the last 10 pages. I still wouldn't say it's an amazing book. I think I'm gonna give it like 3 stars. It's good, but it's, you know, it didn't blow me away or anything. So that finishes our first book of this readathon. And the next one that I'm gonna read is The Examiner by Janice Hallett. I think this is I think there might be another book I own right now, starting with an E, but this is the one I want to read. I really love Janice Hallett. I don't think I've given any of hers a 5-star, but I think I've given mostly 4 stars. But I really appreciate that it has mixed media. So normally it's like texts and emails or audio files and things like that, which I think sometimes just makes the book a little bit more fun to read. This is a murder mystery surrounding students. And all of her books are mysteries, and to be honest, I haven't read the blurb for the back, so I don't 100% know what it's about, but I picked it up because it's written by Janice Hallett. I still also need to read The Alberton Angels, but we're going to start with this one. We'll get to The Alberton Angels eventually. I, at one point, was waiting for all of them to be paperback because that's how I bought the first book, but now I've given up and I'm just getting the hardcover. So, anyway, let's get into the book. I'm also excited to start this because I think, I'm hoping, after the last book, I wasn't crazy about it. I'm hoping this one will be more my style, my taste, and because it has a mixed media, it tends to read faster, so I'm hoping that helps. I'm excited to read, but I feel like I've been in the tiniest bit of a reading slump, so we'll see how this goes. Good morning. My hair's a bit of a mess and I am not dressed yet for the day because I just woke up a little bit ago, but I made myself some little Pillsbury cinnamon rolls because yesterday was Thanksgiving and I did a lot of cooking and I didn't feel like doing any real cooking this morning. Made myself some tea and we're about to read a little bit of The Examiner. I am really excited about this book. I think I've talked about it before, but Janice Hallett uses a lot of mixed media, so she uses like texts, emails, things like that. This one is taking place in a school, and it's an art school where you have 6 students. Clearly there's a murder, but we haven't gotten to that part yet, and it is mostly showcasing I can't remember what the app is called, but you know how when you're in college and there's an app and everyone like messages each other on there, that's mostly what we're seeing right now. And then we're seeing some of the students' assignments and the written assignment of like what they're supposed to be doing. So it's interesting so far. I'm enjoying it. There's one student who's currently being accused of stealing art supplies, but other than that, nothing sinister has really happened yet. So I'm gonna go sit on the couch and get cozy. I'm working on reading The Examiner right now, and I'm really enjoying it. As with, I feel a lot of mixed media books or books where they're using like text messages, emails, and stuff. It does seem to read pretty quickly, which is always nice. But I've just gotten to a point where I feel like the mystery is maybe starting to, I don't want to say unravel, but maybe kind of like show itself. There's characters that seem to have kind of disappeared or have like an alternate life. I don't know what's going on, really, if I'm being honest. I haven't tried too hard to piece it together, but what I'm seeing, I don't know what's going on. One of the characters that's sort of disappeared, I think I kind of understand what's going on with him, but the second one, we just like got an interesting tidbit of information, and now I'm confused and I'm like, what's going on? But it's intriguing and it makes me want to continue reading the book, so that's always a good sign. I'm just here to check in because I have finished The Examiner. I really enjoyed this book. I'm giving it a 4 stars. I just really enjoy the way this story was told. I'm sure I've talked about it before, but I really like kind of mixed media type books. And there were some twists and reveals at the end that I wasn't expecting, but once I found them out, I feel like it was kind of alluded to and you probably could have figured it out if you were trying to. There were things earlier in the book that would have tipped you off, and realizing it now, it made a lot of sense, but at the time I did not pick up on it at all. So that's great. I a lot of times don't go into mystery books actively trying to figure out the mystery because I just want to go along for the ride and enjoy it. So if I'm able to guess who did what, the book probably didn't do a very good job because I'm usually not actively trying to figure it out. But yeah, I love this book. The ending made sense. I just see some Goodreads reviews where people were like, oh, that wrapped up too tidily, or oh, that's not realistic. But I think going into books like this, you have to realize that for the story to work, it's not going to be very realistic. Like, there is a little bit of belief suspension that you need to be doing. But I still think it's fun. It's an enjoyable read. And I'm sad it's over, but I still have The Opportune Angels that I need to read, so I will get to that one day. Okay, so for Elle, my pick is Light Lark. This was a book that I did have to buy for this video. I had, I think, heard the title a couple times before picking it up, but didn't really know much about it. And I was in Barnes & Noble and it just sounded kind of intriguing. So I'm gonna read this little synopsis to you. Every 100 years, the island of Lightlark appears for only 100 days to host a deadly game, where the rulers of 6 realms fight to break their curses and win unparalleled power. Each ruler has something to hide. Each curse is uniquely wicked. To break them and save themselves and their realms, one ruler will die. To survive, Isla Crown must lie, cheat, betray, even as love complicates everything. It sounded interesting to me. I really like when there's a game component to books. Like Harry Potter, I really liked The Goblet of Fire. It was probably one of my favorite books because it had that kind of game component to it. So I'm hoping that makes this interesting. It is YA, and so that does make me slightly hesitant because sometimes YA books that tend towards the younger side I have a hard time with. But we will see. This is the first book I've read by this author, I think, Alex Astor. And I believe this is a trilogy. I could be wrong. I think the 3rd book somewhat recently came out, maybe. So if I like this, I will hopefully finish the trilogy eventually. Hello. I just wanted to give a little update on reading Light Lark, which is what I'm reading for the letter L. I think I'm about halfway through the book at this point, and it's just kind of mediocre. If I'm being honest, I'm like a little bit bored of it. I think it's just that it feels really young YA. Basically, you're in this world where you have these different groups of people and they all kind of have their own areas where they live. And back
many years ago, they were all cursed. We don't really know who cursed them or exactly why, but they all have some sort of curse. So one of them, I think they can only live till they're like 25 years old, I think. And they all just have like something like that. They all have something that makes them kind of special. So you have people that are like the darkness and people that are like the light. And you have the wildlings, which is what our main character is. And they're kind of known for being wild and eating people's hearts and stuff like that. But the leaders of those different groups of people come together, I think once a century, and try to break the curse. They're not entirely sure how to do so yet. So they come, they show off whatever magical powers they have to each other and also to all of the people in this, like, I don't know if it's an island or just a realm, but it houses their king who is super powerful, and he kind of like makes things stable, and all these people judge these rulers and the rulers all judge each other, and then at some point they have to get paired up and then they work in pairs to try to figure out the curse. And once people are paired up, you're allowed to kill each other, but you cannot kill the person that you were paired with. So you're kind of trying to protect each other while also trying to figure out what's going on and if there is a way to break the curse. So it has an interesting concept. I'm just not particularly loving any of the characters at the moment. So we'll see. I am going to continue reading it. Obviously, I'm not going to DNF. I am listening to it as an audiobook, which I think helps. If it was a physical book, I don't know if I would be bored enough to put it aside. I think it is good. I think if I was maybe like 5-10 years younger, I would really be enjoying it. But at this point in my life, maybe it's just not the right book for me. That said, it is a series, so we'll see how the rest of this book goes and decide from there if I'm going to continue reading the whole series. I think maybe if I can get them all through Libby for free, maybe I'll just listen to them for fun. And, you know, you don't have to take every book that you read seriously. Sometimes you just read something because it's a little bit intriguing, a little bit interesting. It doesn't have to be the greatest novel in the world, you know. My cat is right now rubbing up on me and wanting attention. Say hi. It's a very needy boy sometimes. Anyway, that said, I've got to get going, so I will let you know when I have another update. I'm starting on making dinner right now, just boiling some water, but I wanted to update and say that I did finish Lightlark, and I did enjoy it, but it's not my favorite book in the world. I think I'll continue the series. I will say I liked the beginning of it, and then I felt like the middle got kind of boring, and then it got interesting again at the end. There's kind of like a little bit of romance in here, and I will say I didn't like 100% fall for it, but it wasn't terrible either. So I think I'm giving this book a 3.5 stars. The magic in it and the world building, again, I feel like was so-so. I don't know, this whole book to me just kind of felt like middle tier. And I normally really like fantasy books where there's a lot of setup because you get to learn about the world and stuff. And I feel like this one, you did get to learn a lot about the world. But I don't know, I just didn't love the world building as much as I have in other books. But yeah, it was an okay book. It's over now. And we're on to the next thing. Hello, I have started my book for O, which is Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I have not read anything by this author before, but I feel like I've heard her name a lot by other booktubers, and I decided to give it a shot. I think this is young adult. I will say it took me a little bit of time to get into it. I had some trouble with the wording choice and the writing style. I think there's some times where in like dialogue, it just doesn't seem to flow the most naturally. Like I find she's writing teenagers talking, but then she will say something like, "I will not do that," but it feels robotic instead of "I won't do that." She's like not using contractions all the time, and I feel like sometimes the contractions just make more sense in the sentence. And I don't know if that's just like a really nitpicky thing of me to say, but after I kind of got used to the writing style, I am enjoying it. It is definitely young adult, so you have to like take it down a notch. These kids are like in high school. I think coming from reading some like adult fantasy and stuff like this does feel a little bit kiddish, but not necessarily in a bad way. I am enjoying it, and it doesn't seem to be like super overdone, but we are talking about teenagers. There's drama, there's emotions, but I am enjoying it. I did know going into it that there were aliens or something in this, which isn't always my favorite thing, but I am enjoying it so far. I think I'm a little less than halfway through at the moment, and we're starting to get some reveals and see some things happening. It reads really quickly. I will say the print is quite large if you look at it compared to some other books, and so that also probably helps it read quick. But yeah, it's another fun read. Nothing too deep yet anyway. I don't know, maybe it'll get deeper. And I also really like the edges. I think I bought this at Barnes & Noble, and I'm not gonna lie, part of the reason I bought it is because it was pretty. But it also has decent reviews on Goodreads, and I was familiar with the author's name but hadn't picked anything up by her, so I figured it would work well for the letter O, and I was having a hard time finding other books. So this is what we're reading. Good morning. I just wanted to come on here and say that I did finish reading Obsidian, and I really enjoyed it. I think I'm giving it a 4 stars. That was my hair straightener. It is definitely like young adult. So you have to go into it knowing it's not an adult book. Some of the characters are kind of childish, but when you consider the fact that they're all in high school, I think that's kind of realistic. There are some romance components that at times felt a bit weird, but by the end of the book, I didn't mind it too much. And I wasn't really minding the fact that there were aliens and stuff involved. I feel like I've started to come around to sci-fi and enjoy it more. So I have a friend who will be very happy about that. But yeah, I thought it was a fun book. You just have to go into it knowing that it's kind of a young YA. The way that it's written is, I want to say it's just very simple, like the sentence structure and stuff. And I did notice several times in the book that there were, I don't know, like typos, I guess, or things that just didn't make sense in the sentence. I might have taken 1 or 2 pictures of them because I was like, this is weird. How did it get printed like this and not caught in editing? And I know sometimes little mistakes come through, but there were several in this book. And again, I don't know if it was this version of the book in particular or if all versions of the book have these issues, because you would think the first round of printing, they would have been like, oh no, we caught errors after the fact and then fixed it for future rounds. And because this has the sprayed edges and other books in the series are out already, I think, I would have assumed that this is a later like reprinting. So I don't know, that was just a little bit weird to me, but overall I did enjoy the book. I enjoyed the plot, and I do plan on continuing the series. It read through really quickly. I think it could be a nice book to throw in when I'm in a bit of a reading slump, or when I'm reading a bunch of like really heavy, large books. This would be nice to just kind of break it up. The way that it ended, it definitely set itself up well for being a series, and I do want to know more about these aliens, because you kind of get a glimpse of their like culture, so to speak, but you don't really learn a whole lot. So I'm hoping maybe in future books we'll get to learn more. And then our main character has kind of been impacted by these aliens by hanging around them, and something's kind of happened to her. We don't really know exactly what or why, so I'm guessing the next book might explain that, which would be cool. Yeah, all around a solid book, 4 stars. It's just not a 5 because I did find some of the sentence structure a little bit odd to me, and then there were those typos in the books, which aren't necessarily the author's fault, right? But the plot itself was fun. It was good. I recommend if you are looking for a YA that has some science fiction in it.
Okay, it's a little windy, so I hope the audio isn't too bad. But I thought while I was out taking a little walk, I would give an update on Demon Copperhead. I think I've listened to about 2 hours of it, and I'm enjoying the book. It is definitely kind of a heavier book that you need to kind of sit with and take your time. Normally audiobooks, I speed up to like 1.5 to 2 times speed, but this is one where I think in order to really digest it and to take in what's going on, I am listening to it at 1 time speed. And the narrator also kind of talks with an accent, so I originally had it set up, but it was a little bit difficult to understand. I think now I could probably speed it up and be okay, but I'm enjoying listening to it at the regular pace. I have heard that this book is kind of inspired by or closely resembles David Copperfield, so I did read that a little while ago. I also listened to it as an audiobook, and that was a good book as well, and I'm starting to see kind of the pattern. But the difference with this is that it does take place in a more modern setting. It's not modern day, but I think it takes place in like the 80s, 90s. And it's about this boy who was born to this really young woman who, I don't know if she married the man, I can't remember, but he ended up dying, and she is an alcoholic and a drug abuser who, you know, has gotten clean for a while and then relapses, etc. And we're kind of seeing him now. This takes place pretty quickly, like within an hour or two of the book. Seeing him go into foster care and be like removed from his mom because of things that happen. And so it's kind of showing that part of our society. I'm kind of assuming before anything gets better, it's going to get much, much worse. But it is a really good book. But like I said, it is definitely a serious one. So if you're looking for a light historical fiction or a light read, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. But if you are ready for this kind of commentary on society, something David Copperfield-esque, I think it's a really good read so far. Okay, so I'm folding laundry right now, and I've been listening to Demon Copperhead, and I realize it's been a while since I have given an update, and I think at this point I'm like 85% of the book, and I haven't updated since I first started reading. So I'm sorry, I haven't been great about that, but I am really enjoying the book. I will say it is a difficult read for the reason that it just feels so real, and it is traumatic on a lot of levels, and it hurts to read knowing that there are people that have lived through this. Like, this could be somebody's life story. That's how well it's written, is that it's just that believable. I'm gonna try to set my phone somewhere so I don't have to hold it. But it is heartbreaking. I think I mentioned before, it is about this boy whose mother is a drug and alcohol addict, and lights. And he kind of just ends up on this life journey, and you're following him from basically being born to where I'm at in the book. I don't know if he's technically an adult. He's either like late teens. I think he's late teens. I don't know if he's quite out of high school age, like past 18, but he's somewhere in that range right now. And I just don't know how this book's gonna end. I feel like we're either gonna end up with a really tragic ending, or something's gonna happen that kind of like repeats the cycle of his life. Because it kind of seems like in this book, you see families starting, and you know, the parents have struggled with something, and then they have kids, and their kids hit a certain age, and then they start struggling with something. Whether it's the same thing that the parents struggled with or something else. In this book, drugs are a really big topic. People going on pain management drugs for fun and then getting addicted is a really big topic of this. So if that's a trigger for you, don't read this book. It takes place in the South. I can't remember exactly where it is. I want to say I remember the author being from like New Orleans. It takes place kind of in that area, but they talk about like working on a tobacco plantation and how rough that is, and how difficult it is, and how foster kids sometimes were used just to get a paycheck, but they weren't treated well.
the people that were hosting them just wanted that extra money. And, you know, sometimes these kids ended up having to work jobs and they gave all their money to the foster parents so that they could have additional money. And these parents were trying to use them really as a way to make money instead of providing a loving home for a child that needed it, which is really sad. And some of these parents maybe use these kids as a form of labor, which again, not how it's meant to be. And I don't know, it's hard to read, but it is written so well. It flows so smoothly. I have been listening to the audiobook and I 100% recommend. I listen to it at 100% speed, one time speed. I don't know. And I'm not getting bored with it. A lot of times I listen to books at their normal speed and it feels slow and it lags. And this book, while it isn't necessarily fast paced or have like a lot of adventure and stuff, it is holding my attention even at that normal speed. I just realized my deodorant is in frame. Anyway, that is my little ramble on this book. I love the book, but also like hate it at the same time because of its contents. It's difficult to read, like I've said, but I think this book might be a 5-star, maybe 4.5, 5-star. I think it's really going to hinge on how it ends, and I'm really curious what's going to happen with that. Or we'll maybe finish it in the next couple days. This weekend, I'm going on a little bit of a girls' trip for a friend's birthday, but the drive to where we're going is an hour and a half long and we're meeting there. So I'll definitely have some time to listen to the audiobook. But yeah, I just thought I should update before I completely finish the book. I definitely think it did deserve the award or awards that it has won. If you're into historical fiction, read it, unless of course, you know, you're triggered by substance abuse, alcoholism, things like that. There's definitely a lot of that in the book. So I'm gonna finish my laundry. You can see the pile of it right there, and probably listen a little bit longer while I finish this up.
Okay, sorry if there's a little bit of background noise. The Roomba's going. I have the door shut, but I don't want to stop it. Anyhow, I finished Demon Copperhead and I actually really enjoyed this book. I will say it was kind of heavy, so don't go into it if you're not in the right mental space for that. Definite trigger warnings for I guess just like death and drug abuse and stuff like that. There's probably more that I'm forgetting, but definitely look it up if you're sensitive to anything like that. I just thought it was done well, and I understand why it's gotten so many good reviews. And it does make me sad for kids in the foster system, and I know not every foster family is as bad as the ones that we see in this book, and hopefully things have gotten better over time, but I don't really know. I've never been involved in that system, but I thought it was just really interesting seeing this boy man like kind of grow up from his birth to where we are at the end of the book. I don't want to say too much and spoil it. I think it was a really interesting story. There's definitely times where it's a bit slower and times where I was really intrigued, but overall I would recommend it. I think it's probably a good commentary. Again, I can't speak too much to it because I've never been in the foster system and I've never lived in that part of the world at that time, but it was a very interesting read. I did primarily listen to it as an audiobook, and the narrator also did a really good job. The accent I really loved listening to. I will say it was a little bit tricky at first. I had to make sure I wasn't listening to it too fast so that I could understand it, but once I got used to it, I really enjoyed it. I don't know how many times I can say that. I think it was a good book, And now it's on to the next. Oh, I didn't give a rating. I am giving it a 5 stars. I actually finished this book a little bit ago. Oh, my cat. What? He cannot meow properly, so that's what he sounds like when he meows. But I actually finished this book a little bit ago, and I feel like I had to digest it. It's one of those where I feel like I need to take time to really think about how I felt, but it's definitely a 5 stars. I don't really know what else to say, but if you're into kind of that historical fiction, or even if you're not, maybe it would be interesting to you, because it's an interesting concept.
I am making a brine right now for turkey for our Friendsgiving, but I started listening to Yellowface this morning, which is my pick for why, and I'm really enjoying it. I think just like the way that it's written and the narrator does a great job. It's just really engaging, and I don't want to put it down. I don't want to stop listening to it. So I feel like it's gonna get a good rating for me. I think like 30% of the way through, and if you don't know this book, which I'm sure you do because it's been out for a while now, it's about a white author who kind of steals the rough draft from her Asian friend who is a more successful author than she is, and her friend dies in front of her, and she sees the draft, she takes it, and then she kind of starts editing it and kind of making it her own, and she goes through and looks at all of the sources that this Asian author had put together so that she could kind of like understand where she was coming from, and she rewrote parts and stuff, and then she goes through the process of getting it published. And so this book is kind of dealing with own voices versus having a white author writing about Asian concerns and Asian history. So it's a really interesting topic, and on top of that you have this author who like didn't fully write this book either. She kind of stole the intellectual property of somebody else regardless of the fact that she's dead. So I don't know, it's very interesting to listen to. It actually kind of makes me want to get back into writing and be more creative. Obviously not in the way that our main character is. I don't want to steal the first draft from somebody and edit it, but I don't know, something about the way that it's written just makes me like want to work on something. I don't know. It's like making me feel creative, and talking about like Goodreads reviews and things like that. I think it's just so funny. As someone who's not an author, just hearing about it from the other side and them reading the reviews and seeing what people say, and things that I interact with a lot in just my normal life, and talking about things like that. I think it's just, I don't know, it's interesting. It's a fun read, even though it does kind of touch on a more serious topic. The way that it's written is enjoyable to read and fun, but it does make you think. So that's my review so far. I'm really enjoying it. I honestly don't know why I didn't pick this up sooner. It's one that I've been wanting to read for a really long time and just never got around to until now. So I'm really glad I'm reading it now, though, at least.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a little bit of an update. I have finished Yellowface. I really was enjoying reading that book and listening to it as an audiobook. I feel like it really flew by, and it was one of those books that every time I was in the car or folding laundry, doing dishes, whatever, I was like, ooh, I can listen to that audiobook. And so it really just drew me in, and I thought it was really interesting. I think the social dilemma and the racism and the way that it portrayed it felt very real. Obviously, I can only speak about it from the perspective of a white woman, and so I can't say necessarily that it's 100% true to what everybody faces. The author is Asian, I believe, but I thought from what it was portraying was really interesting, and I thought the perspective from a white person was interesting, where by the end of the book, it felt like she was really offended when people kind of minimized her and put her in a corner and said, like, this is who you are, but that was kind of what she was doing to Asian people, and like not intentionally, but I feel like she kind of was. And then by the end of the book, she was being put in the same corner, and it was, I don't know, it was just kind of interesting to see the way that it flopped and to see her reaction to that. I think, I don't know, this is a really hard book to rate. It's somewhere between a 4 and a 5. I think I might need to like think about it longer, but it was just an interesting book. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. The book's been out for a while, so I'm sure a lot of you have probably already read it, but if not, I highly recommend it. I think the way that it dealt with racism, and especially in publishing, where we had an author who was Asian, and so they were like, oh, well, you can only write Asian-inspired stories. And then you have a white author, and people are like, well, isn't it weird for a white woman to be writing from an Asian perspective? And I mean, to an extent, I agree. But that is also something that, like, I feel sometimes, even doing like cosplays or something, right? Like, you want to be culturally sensitive if you're going to try to cosplay somebody that is from a different culture than you. And sometimes that makes me feel weird. So I try to avoid that because I'm just like, I'm a little uncomfy with that. So I don't know. I thought it was done in a tactful way, but I feel like the representation in the book matches what I have seen in real life. It's kind of a difficult topic to handle in a novel, and I think the author did a really good job of that. The more I talk about it, I think maybe it'll be a 5 stars for me. Yeah, I don't know. And it's also not a super long book, which is nice. I think the audiobook was only about 9 hours, so not too bad, but the story was great and I really loved it. Alrighty, I am here to end this video because I started editing and then realized I never filmed an outro. So this is the end of the video. I did not necessarily read all of these books in order of my name. I did kind of jump around a bit, especially when I was listening to audiobooks. Some of them I was listening to an audiobook at the same time as I was reading another book physically. But I have edited it so that everything's in order, just to make it feel a little bit more cohesive. So hopefully I did an okay job with that. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!